What's up guys, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video I'll be making a full review for the SaGa So Brave General banner. This one brings Medea, a buffer, healer, and status Ailment Resistance specialist. Then we have Medea, an STR and intelligence debuffer with access to multi-chase attacks, and Epaminondas, a generic damage dealer with double hits. That's right. Let's start talking about Medea. She's the star of the banner and a very interesting character for hard challenges. She's a club user. We have lots of support for clubs, and she has access to sun spells. So you need a sun weapon in order to use her on full potential. It's bad that we already have way too many club supports, so she's not going to add as much for members, but she will probably replace one of your old supports and stay in your party from now on. Well, she is in hybrid. She needs a little bit of everything. You can see that 100 STR is not high, but she's not really a damage dealer. Her endurance is 75, but it could have been worse. We saw support units with worse endurance. Her will is okay, nothing stellar. Her agility is just fine, and her love and charisma are a little beyond the average, but nothing special. So let's move to passives. We have United Hope 2. When our allies are still surviving, reduces damage taken for everyone by 20%. That is Scroomguard. We have seen this in the past many times. We saw it first with York, then it got super famous with Impress, and it's good because you are decreasing damage taken without having to use the skill. But, well, we got this recently with Muse. Muse has it in the passive called Goddess of Children. In her case, she reduces damage taken when all characters are still alive by 20% and gets 1 BP and recovers HP by the end of a turn. In the case of Medea, she deals something different. She will trigger an HP heal to the party when she gets killed. So that HP heal is medium effect, will be around 1.5 thousand, and it's very nice because when the game knows that Medea is gonna die alongside everyone else, it will only kill Medea and then recover the remaining people, allowing them to survive. So this can be used in some situations when a boss has a very big nuke, and well, it just works. Not all the time, but it's nice to have. Then we have the second passive called Prayer of Love 2. When recovery actions are made, that means recovery spells, she will recover her own HP by around 1.5 thousand and give 2 BP to the target. That's actually pretty interesting, and we'll be discussing this more later. And by the end of a turn, she recovers 2 BP. So 5 BP per turn character, and triggers 2 effects when she heals, right? The third one is called Club Finis. When attacking with clubs, damage increases by 30%, and when attacked, damage taken is reduced by 30. This is an upgrade over High Protect Tension. Instead of 20% damage increase, we have 30, but the damage reduction is the same. So when you look at Medea, she has one damage reduction passive for herself and another one for the whole party, so she actually is good defensively, even if her status does not screen that. Okay, so now let's talk about skills. The first one is Sunlight Blow. For 1 BP, you have a single target attack with blunt and sun damage. The damage is not even important, but this thing here increases all surviving allies status ailment resistances by large effect. Well, it's hard to understand how this actually works because the game will check your ailment resistance and your will. Usually, we just use it will to just decrease the chance of being inflicted with ailments and would increase our resistance to ailment via equipments and accessories. So what Medea does is to increase your resistance without considering will with this skill. This is something that we have seen in the past with Barbara. Well, Barbara has it in her latest style. She also buffs by large effect, but her skill costs 12, and she can actually use this every 2 turns. That means that the effects of Barbara and Medea are actually pretty similar, because Barbara will be using 2 turns, and Medea will also be using in every 2 turns. But there's something else for Medea, she can also buff will, but I'll be discussing this later. But just to talk about a secondary unit that also has this, there is Time. And Time does that when he's attacking on overdrive with Time's friends. You'll not see it here, but it just increases ailment resistance as well. Time once you get into overdrive every 2 turns, but sometimes he gets in 3 turns, so it's also not really reliable. But One thing you can do with Maria that you cannot do with those two characters, that is to focus on just using Sunlight Blow if the time requires. Right now, we don't have this type of situations, but there may be some bosses that will break your buffs. So buffing Will is not really an option because it will be removed. So you will be able to increase your resistance to ailments and stack this increase 4 times to just have the perfect resistance without considering Will. That's something exclusive to Maria. So that's interesting and more relevant in the future than right now. The second skill is called Light of the Sun. For 5 EP you have a full AoE heal that is also fast. It can only be used 2 times per battle. In JP, it's only once. Here in Global it was buffed. And it will also grant an evasion that lasts for 1 time, 1 turn. The heal effect, it's D. I believe it will be healing for around 1.4 thousand or something. And if you level this up to max, you get a little increase. The good part about this is that this is exactly what you get with Matriarch number 4. She has this as well, but Matriarch has to use LP to use Spin of Protection. She uses 5 EP, but she's a 4 EP per turn character. That means that she actually loses 1 in that turn. And she will heal by medium effect, that should be very similar, and grants the evasion. So we have used Matriarch number 4 as our main healer in some fights where you don't need to heal as much, because you could just use that healer slot for another damage dealer or another support. Now Maria can do the same. She's already defensive by giving you Scrum Guard, and you can just ignore a healer in your party if you don't need to heal as much, because if you do need to heal, this is fast, it will be available at all times because she always has 5 EP. And besides healing, you get the evasion. That means that in that turn you will not even take that much damage at all. So very nice to have. It's inferior to Final Impress Shield, of course. Final Impress Shield will negate all damage for that particular turn. But her shield can only be used twice as well, and it's 9 BP cost. But we should also say that with these 3 characters you have different access to different levels of protection. There's also Bunny and Time Lord with evasions, but they don't heal, and they only work once. So they are inferior versions of these 3 characters. Okay. Now, skill number 3, Golden Dragon Dance. For 90 BP you have a single target attack that has double S power, blunt and sun damage just like the first. And here she will buff all status by 25% and recover HP by around 220 of the whole party. The heal effect is not even that important because she's not your main healer, it's just an extra effect. But the good thing here is that she's buffing all status. Every 2 turns, she will be cycling Golden Dragon Dance and Sunlight Blow like I just said. Buffing Will in 1 turn, buffing Ailment Resistance in the next. Keeping a very high protection versus ailments, but it may still not be enough, because Maria is actually a secondary buffer. I like to explain this by comparing Maria to other characters. The first main buffer we got was Matriarch. She has 2 different buffs that can be used in most turns. First being Paean of Victory, that buffs 4 different status, STR, Endurance, Agility, and Intelligence. Then in her 3rd style, she got Paean of Peace, that buffs Dexterity, Will, Love, and Charisma. She can use these skills almost every turn, keeping up very high buff levels. Then we got recently Melissa, and she has a different type of buff. She buffs Agility, Intelligence, Will, and Charisma. They are not the same, but she can cast this almost every turn. And then we just got Muse. Muse can also buff every turn, because she uses 5 and gets average of 4 BP per turn. So you have very high levels of those 4 status. Sometimes those 4 status are what you need. In the case of Muse, you'll be buffing STR and Intelligence, offensive status 4, STR damage dealers, mages, and Will to protect yourself versus magical attacks, ailments, and debuffs. And also Love, so that you heal more. Sometimes using Muse will be enough, you only need those 4 status, right? You don't need to buff all of them. That's why we need to think about who will be your main buffer. And then you can decide upon a secondary buffer that can also be a main buffer. But Maria is not here to be your main one most of the time. She will be the second, because she'll be buffing all status, so you have lower buff values. Okay. Maria actually competes with other characters. The secondary buffers that we got were Nawal's daughter. Well, Nawal's daughter has Water Festival that uses 9 BP but gives back 1 BP to the party and buffs all status by 25% alongside a defense boost. We use it Nawal's daughter many times. She got 2 other styles that are more defensive. And then after Nawal's daughter, another very interesting character that got released was Witch's daughter, Global Access style. This one also has access to a skill that is 8 BP, and she actually buffs all status and removes all the buffs applied to the team. She has an extra value to buff actually 40% when on overdrive, and she also gives BP in overdrive gauge. She is very useful and has 2 damage reduction passives. Very hard to die. So I believe that in the end, she will be competing for the same spot as Witch's daughter. But because she also brings defense, you can actually use 3 buffers if you want, or just ignore your main buffer and use 2 secondary ones. Witch's daughter plus Maria also works, or you can just use Maria plus Muse, so that you have 2 Scrum-Guard users when buffing. But in this case, you have to think about the buffs that Muse brings to the table. Like I said, in the case of Muse, she brings STR and Intelligence for offense. So you have to bring characters like this. You cannot bring Leon, for example, because Leon uses Dexterity as his main damage. So you are just having more options for squad building. If you do not have all the characters I mentioned here, it's very nice to get your Maria, because she would just give you more volley. Now, another interesting fact, Maria is also a BP battery of sorts. Not on the same levels as Witch's daughter, but you can just use her to help out. When you heal everyone with Light of the Sun, she will heal herself because of Prayer of Love passive. That means that she gets 2 heals and gives 2 BP to everyone, including herself. So, well, Witch's daughter gives 3 BP to someone, right? That's right. And that is actually nice, because sometimes we can just build up some BP with characters that needs lots of BP and reach overdrive faster. Well, Maria has nothing to do with overdrive, but she can give BP besides Light of the Sun by also inheriting this spell called Healing Light that can also be amplified now and will also buff Will. Nice, because it's 3 BP, she's a 5 BP per turn character, and in the end she just has a surplus of BP in that turn. Well, besides this, you can just inherit Blast Heal from her first premium style. That is called Beautiful Flower Sophia, but I don't think you need this much. It's more about just inheriting that Healing Light, since it will give 2 BP to someone. That can also be an interesting fact if you are replacing Witch's daughter with Maria. Well, in the end, Maria is very interesting because she has different layers of defense capabilities. She can protect you from ailments in a different way, not relying on will. She can give you a heal and evasion, just like Matriarch. She can protect you by Scrum-Guard, and she can buff all status. Buffers are still the most unique class in this game, and they are the first character I think when making a squad. Sometimes bosses will break your buffs, but this is still not common. So, based on all that Maria has to offer, she deserves an OP tier in our tier list. Okay, she received the highest grade in the tier list, but is she a must-have? I have to say that she does make a big impact, but if you already have Matriarch and Witch's daughter, Muse or Melissa, you are already pretty set for the future. It will take like 4 to 5 months where people will see the difference in having Maria added to their party instead of the styles I mentioned. So, you can wait if you don't have gens, but eventually you will want to have Maria in your party. Maybe she will rerun by December, we don't know. But since she is a SaGa Soul style, it's a little different for reruns, we will have to wait to see. Well, Maria does not have any future style, just like all the other characters from this banner. But let's talk about Razan. This is a future character that will be released probably in 3 to 4 months from now, unless they change the timeline again. Razan is a support unit that can heal 2 times as well. Well, very useful. And he can give attack and defense boost. And additionally, he buffs 5 different status passively. Those are STR, Dexterity, and Intelligence for damage, but also Endurance and Will for resistance. He does not buff Love or Charisma, but, well, if you are already using your Maria together with Resent, they actually help each other, and you can remove a healer from the party. They actually can do it by themselves. The next character is Medea, and she's a hybrid, but in a different level. She wants to apply debuffs. She doesn't have the highest STR or the highest intelligence, but they are on good levels. Her endurance is only 72%, agility is good enough that she will usually attack before bosses, and her will is just okay. Moving on for passives, we have Sword Dance. When landing an attack, she has 50% chance to chase with skill 1, 37% chance to chase with skill 2, 25% chance to chase with skill 3. We have to discuss this later. Moving on, Voltage Force 2. Start of a turn, she grants herself a heat up that will increase her damage potential by 20%, will work 5 times per battle, so she reaches 100% damage increase by turn 5. And on the end of a turn, she will always get 2 BP. Nice, she's a 5 BP per turn character as well. Then we have Latent Bloom Attack. When attacked, damage taken will be reduced by 25%, and on the start of a turn, she grants herself a heat up, increasing damage potential by 10%, can stack 5 times per battle. So by turn 5, she will have 150% damage increase. This is the way that they chose to give her damage potential, while still having those multiple chase mechanics, and still having 1 damage reduction. So she works for boss fights, just not so easy to get killed, although not exactly fully defensive. But now let's talk about skills. The third one is called Rising Dual Dragon. For 10 BP, you have an 8 powerful AoE attack with Slash and Pierce. And it has a chance to debuff both STR and Intelligence by 20%. Her Intelligence is pretty good. She'll probably land these debuffs. And then we have skill number 1, Floral Flourish. This one has E-Power, 9 mod only, and has a chance to debuff STR and Intelligence by 15% instead. Because it's cheaper, it debuffs 5% less. Those are max rank values. When on rank 1, Floral Flourish will only debuff 10%. When on rank 1, Rising Dual Dragon will only debuff 15%. These are the values that you're going to get with the chase attacks. When you use any of her attacks, you have 25% chance to chase with Floral Flourish and debuff an extra 10% STR, 10% Intelligence, and 25% chance to chase with Rising Dual Dragon, and that 15% STR debuff, 15% Intelligence debuff. Well, this is actually pretty nice because you can open the fight and even restart if you want to try to apply at least 2 Rising Dual Dragons, or 1 Rising Dual Dragon and 1 Floral Flourish. It's not even that hard to get those effects by turn 1. We still have something else, Bloom Blossom Whirlwind. For 9 BP, you have a column attack with Slash and Pierce double S power that grants the target Morale Down Medium that lasts for 3 turns. Morale Down Medium decreases damage taken by 25%. It's very similar to having Guard Up Medium in your party. So, it's a character that can debuff, can apply a damage reduction mechanic, and still do good enough damage by the way of chasing. Okay, so in the start of a fight, you will want to either apply the Morale Down Medium to decrease damage from enemies, or try to apply the debuffs. You can choose. If you choose to debuff, you may actually get the Bloom Blossom Whirlwind as a chase. Because it's 37% chance to chase with this, it will likely trigger once every 3 turns. So you can just keep a note if this skill is triggering, and then when the effect is over, always remember to reapply. Keep your BP high. And just remember that Floral Flourish uses 3 BP and she actually gets 5 BP per turn. She will always be saving 2 BP when she uses this skill. And if you do not need to use any, just use a normal attack. Normal attacks also have a chance to trigger any of her chase mechanics. Now that we discussed her chase mechanics, I just want to compare Medea to a character that we got in the past, that is Tatiana. Well, Tatiana is pretty similar, but she debuffs STR and Dexterity, made for different bosses. Some bosses that are just physical, will rely more on STR and dexterity. Hybrid bosses will rely more on STR and intelligence. Intelligence debuff is still the best type, because it will allow you to avoid being inflicted with ailments and debuffs, but some bosses may ask for different debuffs. Another difference between Medea and Tatiana is Medea is better for defense because of that morale down. Tatiana is better for offense because she can self-buff when attacking. Both are okay defensively to themselves since they have 1 damage reduction passive. Both are very good. If the game was living a different moment, well, just like Tatiana, Medea will receive a triple S grade. But the current game usually don't ask for debuffers because bosses will trigger Defy weakness usually every turn, every 2 turns, or when you debuff then for a certain value. And we will lose control over the debuff value with characters like Medea and Tatiana, because they will just keep attacking and keep debuffing. But 2 things to consider. Well, depends on when a boss will use Defy weakness. If it's in the end of a turn, then both Medea and Tatiana are just okay, because they will go debuff for that specific turn, reduce the damage or the chance of being inflicted with ailment, and just allow enough value. If a boss triggers that before he attacks, then you didn't really debuff. He would just cleanse and do whatever he was doing. So there are different situations based on boss behaviors. But Medea, even when not debuffed, she still helps out with her morale down medium. That is something that you find in 2 other styles that are popular, like the anniversary version of Joe. She has it with her Ice and Giant Squid, but you can see that it only lasts for 2 turns. Another character that also has it, it's Building. Building has it. But to be honest, we have characters that have other stuff. Like, the latest version of Undine has 2 different defensive capabilities with Guard Up and Defense Boost. So they are good ways to decrease damage taken, but there are better versions. But Medea will also be doing damage, so she has a different role. Damage dealer with debuff options with an extra layer of defense. Well, Medea does not need inheritance, but there is one that will be very good in the future. From her Tower S style, Andromache, you can inherit Divine Lancer, that will become Divine Lancer Plus, that boosts attack by 50% before she lands a triple S attack that debuffs dexterity. So having access to dexterity, intelligence, and STR debuffs will allow her to work in all scenarios. And by increasing her attack by 50%, she will increase the damage of her chase attacks, actually allowing her to do much better damage. Well, she deals both slash and pierce. As a slash damage dealer, there are lots of competitors, but for pierce, not as much. We have Chooser, Darkid, and also Troll. Now you have Medea. May not be the best one, but can work, especially as a second attacker in some parties. Like I said, she will receive an SS Plus grade by being very useful on what she offers. Sadly, it's just that you won't be using her all the time. The last character is Epaminondas. Well, he uses spears and has 115% STR and 100% endurance. Very good value for endurance. Will is just 85, it's just okay. Agility is 90%. That's okay as well, and he does have some intelligence for instant heal. Moving on, we have Spear Instructions 2. Increases damage for all allies by 10%, and reduces damage taken for all allies by 10% as well. Additionally, increases 10% damage for characters that uses Spear, so for Remembrance it will work all the time, for real challenges not always, but this character is more of a specialist for Remembrance. Anyway, this passive is just like Red's last style, and Mart's Instructions 2, but for spears. Well, the 10% damage reduction is actually pretty nice, because that's what you get with Nadard. Remember Nadard? He gives that skill Gallantry, giving 10% damage reduction to the party alongside 10% damage potential, but that's not the biggest thing. But Nadard has much more. He self-heals well, he has damage block, and gets more defense capabilities later. But, well, you can still use them together if you are missing out for spears. Moving forward, we have Energizing Focus 2. Weak attack damage increases by 15%, and when landing a weak attack, recovers own BP by 2 points. Then the third Offensive Breakthrough 1. Attack damage increases by 20%, and when attacked, damage will be reduced by 25%. He also starts the fight with 11 BP. Okay, so looking at all things here, we have 1 damage reduction passive that works all the time, and the secondary one. So damage will be reduced by 25% and then by 10%. His damage potential is not big, it's actually just 55. As you can see here, we have 35 from these 2 passives and then 20 from Spear Instructions. Moving for our skills, we have Rising Land Plus. It's a free skill that deals AoE damage and pierce element with the power. So, well, it's just here to use for free. Then the second Dragon Spear Cross. It's an 8 BP skill that deals B power, has both pierce and slash elements. First hit, it's row. Second hit, it's column. Well, this type of skill is just very strange. First saw in black style that was available alongside Farnews. This one here, with this attack called Vertical Cross. In the case of black, it had E power and he was a 10 BP per turn character, right? After black, we got it with Khalid. Khalid has it as well. The version of Epaminondas is much similar to Khalid's, but Khalid's is much better. Well, Khalid has Tornado Switch, and he attacks 2 times and will trigger the effects 2 times. Much better, while still getting lots of BP. In the case of Epaminondas, he only has the BP part of the action switch. He will attack 2 times and get 4 BP if he is landing a weak attack. In that turn, he used 8, recovered 7. In Remembrance battles, he always lands weak attacks. But I don't believe people will be using him outside of Remembrance unless we are talking about serious challenge. This is equal to SS power, and you can use it almost any time since he will be recovering 7. Then the third attack is called White Snake Spear. This is a full AoE slash and pierce attack with a power that has a chance to inflict instant kill. So in this future Remembrance, we will have to use instant kill as a gimmick, where we just had to use poison in Carmine. So Epaminondas will help you with that. But to be honest, in Spears we can use Matriarch, and Matriarch usually allows you to cheese and avoid the need of the gimmick. Just like you can just kill Carmine without having to poison. Well, besides, we can also inherit skills from Hannibal. He has access to Swooping Dragon Plus, that becomes a 4S attack that heals HP by around 1.2 thousand. That's actually very useful for Epaminondas if he needs to heal himself without having to care about someone healing him. But I don't think that he's so bad defensively. If you have someone in your party like Matriarch that has a shield and heal, well, most of the time that will be enough, at least for Remembrance. And just like Medea, we have an S style that has access to Divine Lancer. And Divine Lancer will become a triple S attack that boosts attack by 50%, tries to debuff Dexterity, and then that will increase his damage in the next turn as well. So, well, Epaminondas is a very generic character. He barely has anything to offer besides that 10% damage reduction that works all time instead of just when everyone is alive. And there's 2 attacks, one is row and the other one is column with B damage. And, well, you are either focusing on the row part or in the column part, and that is just not really good. There's not much competition for Spears or Remembrance, but you can usually use whatever. So if you have Matriarch, I use it whatever. Now back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? Well, yes, because of Maria. I'll be giving this banner a Silver Plus award because Epaminondas decreases the value a little. He's very generic and totally skippable. But Maria is a new type of buffer with Scrum Guard, will stay relevant for the foreseeable future alongside her unique Ailment Resistance buff, All Status buff, and heal. I have to say that if you already have Melissa, Muse, Witch's Daughter, Matriarch, you can skip and decide upon getting her on a rerun, because her value will only be seen in the future. That it's when you see the difference between those characters. Right now, you can still clear content with what you have, if you do have. If you miss it out on some of the characters I mentioned, it's very nice to summon for Maria. And Medea has some damage potential alongside debuffs that are not exactly meta anymore, but if you get her, nice. If you have around 13,000 medals, you can just PT Medea if you want. But anyway, if you just want Maria, get her and get out of this banner as soon as possible. This banner works for both newcomers and veterans, and it's my opinion. I don't know if I'll be pulling for Maria yet, because I don't have gens, but, like I said, it's worked. But that's my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this can help you in any way to decide if you want to pull for the character or not, and I hope to see you soon in the next video or live stream. Bye.